Thank you, everyone, for being here, joining us for this last event of the AER Conversation Series 2024. My name is Camilla Palestra. I'm a curator, a researcher, and I work as a curatorial associate at the Center for Sustainable Fashion at UAL. As part of my role at UAL, I've been running for the last few years the AER, Art for the Environment Residency Program, which was established by Professor Lucy Horta, who is here with us today, in 2015. And the aim of the program was to provide UAL postgraduates with the opportunity to think through their research and practice through a fully funded residency at one of our international partner organizations. So the idea of the conversation series was came from the desire to expand through a public engagement program the research and the outcomes coming from the residencies. So to create a platform for recent and past AER residents to come together and discuss their shared experiences, common lines of inquiry and resonances in their practice and research. The series of conversation also coincides with the Art for the Environment exhibition, which I have curated for the GroundWork Gallery in King's Lynn in Norfolk. The exhibition is open until the 8th of June, so there are still a couple of weeks for you to go and visit. So today I have the pleasure to introduce our speakers, Eleni Maragaki, Lucy Horta, and Rudy Loewe. Before doing this, I just wanted to remind that the event is being recorded and will be made available on the YouTube channel of the postgraduate community at UAL. So Eleni Maragaki was the AER resident at the Mahler and Loewe studios in Italy in 2023. She's a visual artist born in Athens, Greece. She studied painting at the Athens School of Fine Arts, and she got the MA in Fine Arts at Central St. Martin's at UAL, where she was a recipient of the Mona Houghton Series Award. She's the winner of the Muse Residency Award and the Tate Christmas Card Competition. She's taken part in numerous exhibitions, including a screening in Lux Moving Image in London and the group show in the Art Station Dubulti in Latvia. Her latest project was a public commission for a light installation by Stavros Niarchos Foundation. She's also a member of the Royal Society of Sculptors. Lucy Horta was the founder of AER, as I mentioned, and she was also the guest artist at La Verde in Brazil in 2018. She's a visual arts practitioner addressing key social and ecological challenges through making and collaborative working, employing a wide range of media to visualize relationships between the body and our natural and urban habitats. Lucy has been professor at London College of Fashion since 2022, and she's a member of the Center for Sustainable Fashion. And finally, Rudy Loewe was a resident in 2023 at the La Verde in Brazil. Rudy is an artist visualizing Black histories and social politics through painting, drawing, and text. They began a Techne-funded, practice-based PhD at the University of the Arts London in 2021. This research critiques Britain's role in suppressing Black power organizing in the English-speaking Caribbean during the 60s and 70s. Loewe is creating paintings and drawings that unravel this history, included in recently declassified Foreign and Commonwealth Office records. Their approach to painting speaks to their background in comics and illustration, combining text, image, and sequential narrative. Rudy has been very busy with several exhibitions lately. The full biographies are also available on our website. But for now, I would start with the presentation. So there will be 3 presentations by Eleni, Lucy, and Rudy, followed by a conversation between the artists and with the audience. So I also encourage you to start thinking about some questions. You can use the chat box for your questions, or hopefully you can raise your hand and also ask your question in person. For now, over to you, Eleni.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for introducing me, Camilla. Let me just share my presentation. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. So as Camilla mentioned, I was a resident at Mahler and Loewe Studios for 2023. And my practice, I mainly use printmaking and sculpture, and my practice has to do with exploring the dialogue between urban and natural environments. And that's why I was very excited to take part in this residency, because I knew that it would align with my research interests. So during the residency, I got the opportunity to examine firsthand the dialogue created between the old town of Spoleto and the surrounding natural environment through a series of walks. So I undertook a series of walks with the rest of the residents. And in this slide, you can see some photos from Montefionchi, which is very near Spoleto, and also a panoramic view from the top of Montefionchi, where we experienced the sunset and the full moon minutes apart. It was a very unique experience. And the residency really encouraged me to develop my practice through physical exploration, which was something new to me. We also explored the sacred forest of Monteluco, which is located just outside Spoleto, within walking distance. It's a very spiritual place. It's filled with caves where saints used to live as hermits, and it was a very calm environment, very peaceful place for me to explore. So I got the opportunity to map all the different natural elements surrounding Spoleto in this forest through a series of photographs. And as you can see here, I started to focus my attention on different types of soil, rocks, the patterns of the tree trunks, and gradually my photography was more focused on aerial forest views of the forest, of Monteluco, which were quite central to the work I later produced. But I was also very intrigued by the very diverse architectural character of Spoleto, because it combines a lot of different styles that span from Roman, medieval, and some contemporary buildings. For example, as you enter the old town of Spoleto, there is a work by Buckminster Fuller, the Spoletosfera, which is contemporary. But also I was very intrigued by this massive structure that you can see in this slide, this aqueduct, which joins Spoleto with the forest of Monteluco. It's called Ponte del Tori. It's medieval, but it has Roman origins. And to me, it became a symbol of joining the urban with the natural, because this is an ongoing interest in my work. And so the first artworks I created in the studio were these 3 small-scale drawings inspired by Ponte del Tori, which combine drawings of the Monteluco in correlation with very simple and clear geometric shapes. So basically I wanted to create a dialogue between the natural and the geometric, and I view the geometric as a symbol of order, precision, and architectural structures. So all these observations I did during the walks and the research led to the creation of a body of work which creates a symbolic dialogue between Spoleto and Monteluco. And I became interested in the notion of distortion of a series of landscape photographs that I took during the walks through the elements of repetition and fragmentation. So in this slide, you can see a preparatory drawing I created. And very often in my creative process, I make these drawings because I want to explore technical information. I want to do trials and tests about the creation of artworks and explore abstract ideas through these experimental drawings, like the one you can see. And then the first outcome of my preparatory work was the creation of this handmade flag book. I used the landscape photographs I took in during the walks, and I basically wanted to create a symbolic dialogue between Spoleto and the surrounding hills. So the book symbolically depicts a city in the form of this geometric object in correlation with the landscape photographs. And then the next step was to create this wall-based sculpture. So here, once again, I wanted to combine geometry with nature. I combined the circle as a very strict and clear geometric shape with the panoramic view of the forest. And my purpose was to explore this correlation between the simplicity and clarity of geometry and also the idea of variety and richness of the forest. And this is another collection of work. It's the paper models I made in the during the last week of the residency. So I had a lot of ideas during my time there, and I knew that I wouldn't be able to materialize everything. So I took some time to create these paper models, which explore future artworks after the residency. And here I wanted to combine three-dimensional geometric patterns with the landscape photographs. But in addition to that, I introduced another element of distortion in this body of work, which is the 3D anaglyph. So these, the photographs I used for these artworks were digitally processed to create a 3D effect when viewed with red and cyan glasses. So this was an additional element of distortion in correlation with the natural landscape. And this was the last collection of works I made in Spoleto. I believe that overall photography was very central in the work I produced because I was interested in working site specifically, and I wanted to convey the unique atmosphere of the Monteluco landscape, and I believe that it was a very rewarding experience for my practice because collecting elements from a particular region in order to inform my studio-based work allowed me to create a more direct connection with the landscape, which was something, it was the first time I experienced that. And here I want to say a few words about the public outcomes of this residency. So we did an Open Studios event in Spoleto after the end of the residency, it was a very nice experience for me. I really enjoy Open Studio events because I get to present my work in all stages of production from beginning to end. So I showed preparatory, final, and work in progress. And also because I often enjoy making interactive work, so it was very encouraging to witness the audience feel very comfortable around my work and explore the 3D elements in some of the pieces. And these are some installation photos from our current exhibition at GroundWork Gallery, which is on until the 8th of June. And once again, I was very happy with the response we got. I showed the work I created in Spoleto, but also some new work. So here I will show you a few slides about what I did after the residency. So as I said, it was a very inspiring time for me. So upon my return to London, I decided to keep working towards the same ideas and themes. And I continued with this preparatory drawing where I explore even further the idea of three-dimensional geometric patterns and how to construct them from paper. And then I made some more paper models where I combined the patterns with the landscape photographs, as well as some digital drawings exploring minimalistic geometric solids. And this preparatory work led to the creation of this pyramid-shaped sculpture, which incorporates one of the aerial views of the forest of Monteluco. And once again, with this work, I wanted to create a dialogue between geometry and the landscape. But also it's a very intriguing work for me because I believe that the aerial nature of the photograph combined with the multiple geometric faces of the solid, I think it creates a notion of the ever-evolving landscape, which I found quite intriguing. Yeah, so ever since the residency, I have an ongoing interest in trees and forests. And I also I find very interesting walking and observing. So here you can see some photos that focus on various tree species, which I use for my drawings. And I have also started developing my drawing practice in a different way. So I'm doing some small-scale drawings while walking, which I find quite intriguing, and it's new for me. And then I take these to the studio and I enlarge them to add more detail. So I feel that after the residency, I have developed a more physical and direct connection with the landscape, which I didn't have before, and it's quite helpful. Here you can see a small collection of linocuts. I call them landscape fragments because to me they signify the notion of the landscape consisting of several small elements. So with these, I focus my attention on smaller parts of the landscape, like leaves, the roots of the trees. And here you can see another work, another linocut, large-scale linocut, which is still in progress, and it depicts a forest. It was developed from one of my drawings. And this will actually become an interactive artwork, and it will be part of a series of artworks that explore the dialogue between geometry and the landscape through puzzle making. And this was the end of my presentation. Thank you very much. I will stop presenting.
Thank you, Eleni. Thank you so much for this journey, and also a kind of a transformative journey of your practice from before and after the residency. We will have time at the end to come back to some of the points, but I would leave it to Lucy now for her presentation. Lucy.
Hello. Yeah, I was just going to write a little message to Eleni in the chat, but I didn't get time. It was to say thank you for your beautiful presentation, Eleni. I'll look for mine now. Yeah. So it's uploading. Fantastic. Can everybody see?
We can see, Lucy.
So yeah, good afternoon. Thank you very much for inviting me, Camilla. It's an honor to present the residency that I undertook in the Lab Verdi Art for the Environment residency program. So I'd like to just give you an overview of the Lab Verdi program before I tell you about the work that I made in the Amazon. So the Lab Verdi is a residency that takes place in Brazil, I believe since 2016. And the main focus of the residency is the city of Manaus. So that's in northwest Brazil, and it's the capital of a very vast state of the Amazonia. So in the heart of the Amazon rainforest, you can see it circled there, surrounded by all of the green. And on that image on the bottom there, you can see the Adolfo Duque Forest Reserve, which is where we undertook the residency. So it's also the headquarters of the National Institute of Amazonian Research. And Manaus, the city, is a major departure point for the surrounding Amazon rainforests. So tropical forests comprise the most biologically diverse terrestrial ecosystems. They cycle more carbon and water than any other biome. And they play critical roles in regulating the global and regional climate systems. So the reserve, Adolfo Duque Reserve, is one of the most important study centers for the Amazon biota, and it's easily accessible from the city of Manaus. It includes areas for researchers to carry out their research for extended periods. And the reserve, the Adolfo Duque Reserve, is one of the most intensely studied patches of the rainforest in the world, serving as a basis for biodiversity surveys in other areas of the Amazon region. So the Lab Verdi immersion program focuses much of their attention here. It's one of our key host partners, the Art for the Environment, as I mentioned, and postgraduate students have been in residency since we set up the program in 2015, and where I was fortunate to be invited in 2018. The second slide showing. Yep. So Lab Verdi was founded by a women's collective in partnership with the National Institute of Amazonian Research, and it's led by curator Liliane Frahegi, and she's our partner in AER. And it's a transdisciplinary platform for artists, indigenous peoples, scientists, and other knowledge agents who come together to recognize and narrate nature, to create new ways of existence and interaction with the environment, and to co-imagine new approaches to current ecosystems. Its program includes residencies, lectures, exhibitions, festivals, workshops, and publications. Here are some of the snapshots of the Adolfo Duque Forest Reserve, including our only means of communication to the outside world for the next few weeks that we undertake in residency there. And within this context, landscape-based conceptual art has a new layer of meaning. In the expanded field of the rainforest, it's necessary to understand the landscape as a product of interactions and exchanges of energy between beings and phenomena on many levels. During the 2018 program, we were guided through field trips, and you can see some of the images here, along the trails of the Acara River in the reserve, up an observation tower 40 meters above the tree level, and the Igapu River Trail and Praia Grande Beach. And along this journey, we're immersed in the current research of eminent scientists, including Charles Clement, who talks about the domestication of the Amazon and demonstrating that the forest is not virgin. It has been controlled and managed by indigenous communities. And another phenomenon, the botanical archaeology, focuses on the study of preserved plant evidence from archaeological sites and the reconstruction and interpretation of past human-plant relationships. Another researcher, Johan Schoengart, in his research on dendrochronology and radiocarbon dating, indicates trees can live to more than 1,000 years, meaning they have the potential to reconstruct deep time growth patterns and their relationship to anthropogenic management or climate change from pre-colonial to present times. And we also saw the evidence of walking trees. There was small creature research, and Rudy will be talking about this right after. And we also met the communities that monitor the critically endangered Amazon dolphin, the pink dolphin. And Stefan Wolf, a meteorologist from Max Planck Institute, who talked about airway rivers, where we watched clouds forming through the precipitation of the vegetation, and so many more encounters that nourished our time there. For a moment, consider the following situation. Your body enters the rainforest, your pupils dilate, and your skin sweats. The humidity and the fresh air overwhelm your senses. Sweat seeps through your pores and your breathing oscillates. The flat light filtered by the leaves and branches sharpens your other senses. The sounds, the million timbres, define the space. Moreover, many unadulterated smells penetrate your memory in your tireless search for their origins. At first, everything is static and hidden. But when you become aware, it dawns on you that everything is part of a whole. Everything doubles within itself, and you, without noticing, have become absorbed. Beautifully written by Lillian, the curator. After adjusting to the rainforest and the emotions evoked by her, and from what seems like an impenetrable forest pathway, an impenetrable forest, pathways emerge. The presence of human investigation and the need to rationalize the environment can be distinguished through cartographic markers, rusted tags, plastic plaques, mildewed ribbons, bent nails, are the miniature signposts for the tireless researchers who monitor and collect data for weeks on end, year by year, to inform the world of the evolution of the ecosystems. We are in awe at their dedication. The practice I undertook during my Lab Verde residency builds on a project called Perpetual Amazonia that I began developing after my first expedition to the Amazon in Peru in 2009. Collaborating with scientists working in Brazil and Peru, I identified 2 1-hectare research plots that could become the subject of a conceptual and participatory artwork. We subdivided the plots into 10,000 subplots, each measuring 1 meter squared. Each plot can be identified by either its GPS or UTM coordinates. In the Adolphi Forest Reserve, I performed a ritual to mark out the 4 corners of one of the 20,000 1-meter plots. In each corner, I placed a metal tag, which I'd stamped in the Adolphi Duc laboratories. Here, I marked the corner, and on each of the corners, the stamped letters spell out the verse of a poem written by the founder of eco-poetry, Mario Petrucci, which I commissioned in 2009. The poem charts the expedition I undertook to the Peruvian Amazon to bear witness to the effects of climate change through the eyes of scientists from the Oxford University Environmental Change Institute and Cape Farewell. Through the narrated voices of Progress and Gaia, we are taken on a conversational journey, starting in the Andes at 3,500 meters above sea level, where the water runs off to the elfin and cloud forest, descending the Inca trade route along the Trocha Union to the river Madre de Dios, a tributary of the Amazon. The poem begins, "My center is everywhere, huge and hung together." Under the forest canopy, Gaia speaks to progress. Last night, worm and ant disappeared. Trees stiffened, soils perspired. Grain by grain, who would aerate and turn? From root to rain, canopy to shoot, the unhuman mourned. Last night, humanity died. Tree and soil sighed, moved on. Progress and Gaia also discuss the future, as Gaia speaks of hope. And one man made a speech about the slaughtering of green. And while he was speaking, a woman dug a pit in me, placed within it a green branch, laid it gently as though it were her daughter, and gave it water. Perpetual Amazonia is a long-term project. We have imagined assigning a certificate of stewardship to each subplot. The certificate represents a 1 meter square of land in the fragile environment, indicating natural features, organisms, and species that reside there. This is potentially 20,000 certificates that we can distribute to audiences in the future. I'd like to stress that this certificate is symbolic. It takes the form of a deed, a moral right to the plot. It's a document that geolocates the plot, describing ecological specificities, but it also outlines some symbolic obligations of the steward. It has both a metaphorical and material value. It's a tangible evidence of a custodian relationship to a larger organism, part of the whole, as Lillian describes, but it also holds a value as an artwork. Modern conservation efforts are increasingly guided by the value of nature in ways that economists, politicians, and financial markets understand. This means placing a monetary or trade value on the public services the environment provides, such as clean air, fresh water, soil, provision of nursery grounds, drought, flood, etc., etc. This language of economic currency may be the way to prevent or slow the decline of natural assets or species. Understanding the value of ecosystems is the first step, but there's also a need for sustainable ways for people to live in harmony with their environment. So we hope that Perpetual Amazonia will question how we value the intangible goods that we depend on, such as rainforests, deserts, wildlife, or natural resources, and sets their value against tangible objects such as goods and property, with the enjoyment or emotions they provide. Anchored in the theory and practice of relational operational aesthetics, Perpetual Amazonia intends to combine, Perpetual Amazonia has the potential to provide an engaging action with non-expert audiences, to transmit knowledge and encourage nurturing and protection of our natural resources. The last couple of slides are just some of the works that Studio Auto have created since these expeditions, seeking ways to render visible species loss, testing materials and forms of representation, opening up conversations with the general public through exhibitions in museums and public space. They're visible on the website under the meta theme Amazonia. But Amazonia is not a place, it's a center everywhere, everything huge and hung together. I'll pop into the chat some of the links to these artworks so that you can take a look at them afterwards. And finally, I'd like to acknowledge Art for the Environment residency and all of the team that have been working on the program for the last 10 years, especially Camilla Palestra, the associate curator, and the postgraduate team, Rachel Lacan and Fred Kavanagh and Katrona Mohammed, plus all of our hosts, 19 hosts, not all listed here, but they have allowed these incredible residencies to take place, and for 50 students, postgraduate students and alumni from the university to undertake residencies in the incredible host institutions and the public engagement program, the exhibitions and public events and publications that we've worked on over the last 10 years. Thank you very much, Camilla.
Thank you, Lucy. And I also put in the chat the link to the webpage, AER webpage, where you can find the list of all our hosts and also the incredible reports by all of the artists who have been in residence there. But anyway, and also thank you so much for your wonderful presentation. I felt quite nostalgic seeing all the images from Lab Verde. But I will leave it to Rudy now for the presentation before opening up a conversation. I can stop sharing your screen, Lucy.
Sharing.
And Rudy, over to you.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Great, perfect.
Yeah.
So first of all, I just want to say a big thank you to Lucy and Camilla for trusting in my practice and giving me this opportunity to go to the residency with Lab Verde, because it really was such an incredible experience, and it has really left its mark on me. So yeah, thank you so much. And also, I just want to warn anyone who has a fear of spiders that this presentation does include spiders. So if that is something that you're scared of, I invite you to close your eyes and just listen, and I can let you know when you can open your eyes again. Yeah, so last year I was the artist in residence at the Amazon forest with Lab Verde, and the project that I had applied to go with was this project around Anansi. So from around 2019, I had started this project thinking about Anansi, who is this character from originating from West African, specifically Ghanaian folklore. So Nancy is this character that is kind of like a shapeshifter, a spider, sometimes a man. But I was really interested in thinking about this kind of archetype in terms of what it could mean for trans people, and this idea of being a shapeshifter, and especially the archetype of the trickster. And so I'd been working with this, and then I wanted to go to the forest to think about how to build on this in terms of thinking about spider technologies and how to learn from spiders and collaborate with people with different kinds of practices. And, I get to meet elders and kind of, think about this work in different kinds of ways. And so, so there's sort of different elements to this. So thinking about how the spider technologies could be harnessed to be useful for trans communities. Thinking about who embodies the trickster, storytelling, and these kind of relationships with and in nature. And so one of the things I discovered, or like I was really kind of surprised and also not surprised in a way, but just amazed, I guess, about being in the forest, in the Amazon forest, was that, oh, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry, I got a weird reconnecting sound. So the forest is full of technology. And so, for example, there was this plant that we were introduced to, which has a symbiotic relationship with ants, where it has this kind of little bean bit on the leaf, and that houses ants. And so the ants protect the plant from herbivores, and the plant provides a home for the ants. And I just thought these kind of relationships are so incredible, and there's so many examples of these kind of technologies existing in nature and in the forest. And I think that there's so much that can be learned from this, that, you know, I think there's something really beneficial from rethinking about how we think of technology, and kind of recalibrating that in ways that are much more expansive, and also kind of honor a much more kind of indigenous way of thinking about technology. So I was learning about different kinds of spider technology, and one of the things that I kind of decided quite early on from being in the forest was that actually, in order for this to function in terms of it working as something for trans communities, then it needed to be something that was unknowable, that it needed to be something that could be opaque to certain groups of people. So it won't function basically as a technology if it's just completely openly accessible. And so I started to realize that there needs to be kind of coded ways that only certain people can access this information. And so this is something that I started to develop. And so, yeah, so during the residency, there really was not very much time for practice or like making, for me at least, anyway, with my practice with painting. I was doing some drawing, but there really was not very much time. It was like a very intensive guided residency. And one of the most amazing experiences for me was getting to do this night spider walk with Chico, who is an etymologist who works at IMPA, which Lucy mentioned, the Amazonian Institute, the National Institute of Amazonian Research. And so he took us on this incredible walk, and we just got to meet all of these amazing spiders, basically. And then there was also an indigenous elder, Capiro, who took a smaller group of us at night into the forest. And so I was also learning from Chico and from Capiro so much about spiders that kind of went against my understanding, my previous understanding and expectations of spiders, even as someone who loves spiders. So it was really interesting also to see how little we actually know about them, and how much fear and how much kind of stereotyping there is around spiders, which for me is like really parallels how people talk about trans people, that there's so much fear and stereotyping and hype that is like created around trans people that is not really based on the reality of trans people or our lives. And so, yeah, so I started to try and kind of develop a body of work or a framework basically based on this, and thinking about how this then could be brought to community in a way that would be coded. So straight after I left the Lab Verger residency, I went straight to another residency in Cambridgeshire, in rural Cambridgeshire, at Wising Arts Centre, which was very lucky because I think just going straight from the forest to London was quite a lot. And so, yeah, I got to kind of be in another environment of meeting a lot of other small creatures, a lot of other spiders, but in rural England. And yeah, just spending time with them and understanding about what kind of habitats they lived in. And I think for me, like spending time with spiders is like a deeply spiritual experience, like communing with spiders. And yeah, I kind of met these incredible spiders. Some of them I'd like never seen before in my life, which was really amazing. And also something happens when you start to work with spiders, you like attract more spiders. And so, yeah, when I was there, one of the things that I wanted to do was to build this spider house. But from my experience of being in the Amazon, I started to learn, okay, you need to go out at night to do these spider walks to meet spiders. And I discovered that they already had a spider house at Wising that they didn't know that they had. So someone had made this really large sculpture, and at night it turned into this like ginormous, amazing spider house. And so, yeah, so when I was at Wising, I was kind of collecting the research from Lab Verger and putting that together with my research from Wising. And I started to play with how this could be transformed into different forms. And so one of the things I was playing with was thinking about how this could work sculpturally, because I was having access to a ceramic studio, which is not part of my usual practice, but I wanted to kind of, yeah, think about kind of creating something that could work as an installation. And this is like an ongoing idea, but thinking about also how I could then collaborate with someone who works with sound. So when I was in the Amazon, another artist, Yoshi, was a sound artist, and we spent a lot of time going into the forest together at night because we both wanted to be in the forest at night. And so actually Yoshi has just won a Sound of the Year award for his recordings of the forest, which I can put in the chat. And so I was thinking about something like this, like how could this spider, for example, become a sound installation, like maybe having the sound like coming out of this ceramic piece. And so one of the other things that has happened then is that I have been collaborating with another artist, Jacob V. Joyce, and we have created this trans-only language. And this has been a way for us to communicate some of the spider technologies through, in plain sight, but basically through the language. And so I've been kind of putting that into my painting. Yeah, and so if you've had your eyes closed, you can open your eyes now. So these are some of the works that I've been continuing to do, yeah, after I left Wising also. So it's an ongoing body of work, thinking about Anansi and thinking about the spider technologies and yeah, how this can be harnessed by trans community. And I am also going to have some work in the Toronto Biennial this year, which is also, there's another piece which also then is also part of this this body of work as well. And I think I will just finish there.
Thank you, Rudy. This was wonderful, really fascinating. You shed a new light on spiders, at least for me. We have a bit less than 10 minutes for the conversation, which is not long. And I would also encourage the people online to use the chat box to raise any questions. And while waiting for this, and I know you have questions for each other, but I wanted to kind of give you a prompt for the conversation to the three of you, because thinking about also the previous talks with other AER residents, it kind of became apparent to me that there's in research and practice, there's a move or a struggle towards a collaboration with non-human forms of life, which doesn't entail the use of these forms of life as a resource to extract, as a resource that we own. And I've been thinking about the notion of ownership, and there's something in Eleni's work in the process of abstraction of natural forms, which in a way is a process of measuring and perhaps of comprehension, and comprehension both in terms of understanding, but also to hold and to own. And Lucy, in your Perpetual Amazonia project, ownership is kind of at the core of the work. And similarly, Rudy, your reference to the spider technology, to the spider as a kind of companion to co-create, but also more in general to the idea of ownership in relation to coloniality and the British Empire seems relevant to me. So it's a prompt for you. You might want to take it or not, or develop the conversation. Otherwise, we have few minutes. So if any of you wants to respond.
Yeah, I feel like that's a really important point to make, actually, that I think these kind of non-human relationships that I think one of the things that feels really important to me about spiders is that they're not often creatures that people think are cute, and they don't serve any like quote unquote purpose necessarily, and they shouldn't have to. And that, yeah, you know, that of the value of life shouldn't be based on what we get out of a creature's existence. You know, that yeah, and that the idea of ownership is deeply problematic if everything is about what humans are getting out of the planet or out of other species, rather than it being that, you know, I just respect your right to exist on this planet that we both live on.
Any, Lucy, Eleni, do you want to comment? I mean, in relation to your specific projects or to your thinking more in general?
I was just thinking about this notion of ownership in terms of the language that you're owning, Rudy, as well, through that relationship that you have with the spider too. So, and then this idea of communities, you know, we have these communities of ecosystems, communities of humans, and, you know, this is there permeability between these communities or not, or how do we create different frontiers or barriers? And, you know, are the actions that we're undertaking in the forest, you know, destructive in terms of, you know, this human community entering into that? So I was just yeah, really interested about, you know, how you've in a sense taken ownership of what the spiders have given you in terms of their being, their existence, and your interaction with that. It was a reflection. I don't think it was a question, but yeah, it was beautiful to think about.
I also have a comment about Rudy. I really enjoyed your presentation. I actually have arachnophobia, but I kept my eyes open. And it was, you mentioned before that spiders, we think of them as they don't serve a specific purpose, but actually they have a very important place in the ecosystem. And it was very interesting to see your inspiration and why you were drawn to these insects. And yeah, thank you for your presentation. I really want to overcome my fear of spiders, so you helped today. Thank you.
Whenever anyone has arachnophobia, I always just say, you know, you don't need to touch them. If you can at least just be like, I respect you and you're over there and I'm over here, and like, that's cool. That's a really good place to start.
Yeah.
Keep a distance. Is there anyone from the audience who would like to ask a question in the last minute we have? No, any comment? I know, I mean, we had comments in terms of in relation to the presentations, and thank you for sharing also the links. And the conversation will be available online, so it will also serve as a educational kind of platform for UAL students interested in the art and environment interrelation.
Perhaps I could ask a question to Rudy, but also Eleni, because I believe, Eleni, you finished your studies at the university now, and you have a professional practice, and you mentioned the exhibitions that you're undertaking. And Rudy, I believe you're still in study, is that correct? Undertaking a PhD. And I was wondering how the research that you're doing or have done in Lab Verde and continue to do feeds into your PhD research.
You know, I don't know, it's not directly related, but I feel like being a trickster, it's like it's above everything. You know, I feel like Anansi is like it's like above everything. So actually, because I took the work that I'm doing with Toronto Biennial, I took it as a placement. I'm actually not allowed to write about Anansi for my PhD now, but it's actually there. So it's like whether or not I talk about it, it does play a big role, because it's like, I just feel like it's, yeah, it's kind of intrinsic to how kind of navigating all of these systems, if that makes sense, without, yeah, expanding too much on it.
Yes, it sounds like, yeah, it's your art is your life and life is your art. And it's difficult to separate between, what is the academic research and what is the practice.
Eleni, do you want to come back on this very quickly? And then I think we need to wrap it. Yeah.
About how the residency has affected my current practice. I think that all the ideas I explored in Spoleto, I think they helped me form a more physical connection to the landscape, which is very central in my practice. So I really value this opportunity. And I think that these approaches will continue to be present throughout my work, whether it is sculpture or printmaking or photography, anything. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. It's a really long-lasting experience from what we hear from all the residents. And unfortunately, it's 2:00. We need to end here. It's never enough time to really engage more in conversations. But I wanted to thank again Eleni, Lucy, and Rudy for your generous sharing today, the postgraduate community for organizing and hosting the event. And hopefully there will be future occasion to come together again and continue the conversation. So thank you to the audience as well, and I'll see you soon.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Right.
Bye.